Normally in US there is a law that against monopoly, unless if it's sometimes the government lets the monopoly if it has been. So it is what happened. So the government will say, okay, this is called antitrust law. You cannot have a one company controls the whole market. It's called monopoly. The government can come and break you down. It's like we're trying to do with Facebook today and Google, because in social media, Facebook has a huge control over. We don't have any other options. We are close into monopoly. They might decide to regulate you or break you down. But sometimes if monopoly is beneficial for consumers, so if we think the monopoly is not good for consumers, the government has to intervene. But sometimes we think, oh, it's better to have monopoly. So example of that's utility. One neighborhood has one company. Why? Because you know how many like pipelines you have to have in a neighborhood to give gas and electricity to the people. If we let the competition in, we will have people dig in everywhere. We will make a mess. So, but also government can get in and say you cannot charge this. They will tell you how much you can charge. If you have monopoly, and we think it's better for consumers, we can let you have one company in the market, but we also will control the pricing system. So yes, most of the time the government will only involved if we have monopoly. We have also government be sure that, for example, if you have a small company, if you have a few number of companies, you don't let them like it's called cartel, where they just work together to set up the price. Like Verizon, AT&T, for example, we'll not let them negotiate, communicate with each other to figure out how much they will charge people, because there are two big companies. They have huge market share. They have so much power over people. Okay, they can compete, but if they start like coordinating with each other, it's against law. If we can prove that AT&T is working with Verizon, it's a problem. For example, if another example if like was T-Mobile trying to buy, Sprint. A lot of companies tried to buy Sprint, but government, Verizon, no, we are really too big. We'll not let you buy Sprint because you will have more power over consumers. T-Mobile, no. TNT is too big, but we can let another small company to buy Sprint, so we can have more competition, bigger competition. That's why they let T-Mobile to buy Sprint, but they will not let Verizon or TNT to buy it because they're already big companies. If they make their share bigger, they will just kick off everybody out of the market. So the government, sometimes when you're trying to buy a company, you have to go in front of the government and make a case that buying this company is good for consumers. You have to make a case that if we buy this company, either the product will be better, meaning you're producing better product, or will be cheaper. So most of the time, if you are big, they will not let you do that. Okay, I hope that I answered your question. So now let's keep going. So we're going to use this model to explain all this. So how the price is determined. So supply and demand is a very simple example here, as I mentioned, of economic theory. It will help us either explain how the price is reached. We can predict about the future of the price, what happens if something changed in the market. But we are assuming that we are working most of the time in a free market system. We will have less government involved, and the price is determined by the interaction of consumers and buyers. But this is very hard to achieve. We can assume it, but normally in real life you have a government everywhere. Okay, so it is very good to give you the sense of how the market works. We'll use this model to do that. So we're going to assume, the assumption we're going to make when using supply and demand first is that we have a perfect competition. What does that mean? We have many buyers, we have many sellers. Everybody can start and open a business. It's easy to get in and get out. It means nobody has a power over setting the price. We are a price takers. The market determines the price. So when we are seeing supply and demand, just remember, we can change it a little bit in the future. We can add changes to it, but for the framework as a whole, we can assume that we are competing in a perfectly competitive market. What does that mean? We have many buyers. You cannot, as a buyer, if I buy or not buy will not affect the price. What is that? That's what it means. If a company will not be able to set up the price by itself, because there are a lot of people selling identical prices. Okay, and the product are unique. Not unique, it's identical. So you sell gold, everybody is selling gold. And a good example here is the stock market. Stock market is perfect competition. If you are selling Apple's stock, for example, it's the same. It does not matter you bought it from X or Y person or Z person. It's the same Apple stock. If I sell it, I don't care who I'm going to sell it for. I have a price in the market. It's like, let's say 300. Anybody is willing to pay 300, we'll get this stock. Anybody is willing to sell the stock at 300, they will sell it. So nobody will influence by himself. One person by himself or by herself will not be able to influence the price. That's why we assume there are a lot of buyers and a lot of sellers. So nobody has the power to set up the price. So we're going to talk about the demand side. People are buying. Every time we talk about demand, we're talking about consumers or buyers. If I say consumers or I say buyers, I'm talking about the demand side. Okay, so that's very important to remember. Every time, first, we're trying to understand supply and demand. Sometimes it's confusing. The first things you have to decide: what is the product I'm talking about? What is the market? That's very important. Second, who is the buyer in this market and who is the seller in the market? If I don't define these three elements correctly, I will make a mistake in my analysis. I will make a mistake. You will see sometime if I will ask people in my class, like we were live, I will ask, if I talk about gas, I'm talking about the product. For example, I will talk about gas. Who is the demand? Who is the supplier? The problem is that you cannot determine just by saying gas market, because sometimes you have gas stations. They can be suppliers if they are selling for consumers, for people, car users. They can be demand if they are buying from refineries. So just saying gas by itself is not enough to determine. You have to have more information. So I can determine. I'm talking about the gas market, but I'm talking about gas stations as suppliers, or I'm talking about gas stations as demand from big other companies. So very important. Demand means consumers, buyers. So quantity demanded. So the definition of quantity demanded, you will see why is it important to understand how much people are willing and able to buy at specific price. So the amount of goods and services people are willing and able. So willing and able to buy during a specific period of time at specific price. So we have willing and able. That's very important. And it has to be during a specific period of time and at specific price. So what does that mean? So I'm selling the product. I have a person, one, he wants the product, he likes the product, but he does not have money. So he's willing, but he's not able. It's not my consumer. It's not for me. He's not consumer to me. Yes, he likes the product. I like iPhone, but I don't have money to buy it. So iPhone, Apple company, I'm not consumer for Apple's product. I might have money for a product, but I don't like it. I have money to buy, for example, Nokia, but I don't like Nokia. So I'm not willing to buy it. I am able to buy it, but I'm not willing. So two conditions to be considered consumer. For a product, you have to be willing, means you want the product and you have money to pay it. Otherwise, I don't care about that person. That's one thing. Second thing is that it has to be specific price. So if I say the price of t-shirt is $5, I have to find out how many people are buying my product at this specific price. Maybe 100 people. Maybe that's quantity demanded at the specific price. Demand is not the same thing. The demand is a description of how quantity demanded changes as the price of goods changes. So it's a relationship. The demand is the relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. It's a function. So I can say, okay, how much people are willing to buy QD is a function of the price. Everything else equal. So every time I change the price, I will change the quantity. So that's the demand. It's just the full description of how quantity demanded changes as the price of goods and services change. Okay. So in other terms, how much people are willing and able to buy at different prices. The difference between demand and quantity demand is this last piece, specific price. If I'm talking about quantity demanded, I'm talking about specific price. But if I'm talking about demand at different prices, means I'll have a table like this. I have prices, quantity demanded. I have different prices, different quantity. The whole thing is called the relationship, which is demand. Demand. For every price, I have quantity. That's quantity demand. So be sure when you talk about demand, it's a relationship. It's not one thing. It's not specific. At every price, I have different quantities. That's the demand that shows the relationship between the two. So we'll get the example and see. So the demand is the relationship between the quantity demanded and the price of goods when all other influence of buying plans remain the same. What does that mean? How much you buy is a function of a lot of things. First things, when you're trying to buy a product, you look at the price of the product. But that's not the only thing. If I'm trying to buy a car, let's say I'm trying to buy a Honda. I'm not just going to say, okay, how much is the price of Honda? That's one variable. Yeah, it's correct. But there's other thing, which is called the price of related goods. I'm going to look at the price of Honda, I look at the price of Toyota, I look at the price of GM. The price of this product will affect if I will buy Honda or not. If I'm trying to buy a computer, I should look at like trying to buy a Dell computer. I'm not just going to look at the price of Dell, but also I have to look at the price of HP. Well, that's called related goods. Then also I have to look at my income. I'm trying to buy a product. It's not just like the prices. It could be price good, but I don't have income. I can look at my expectation. I'm trying to buy a computer, but I know. So imagine you want to buy a car. Okay. So let's say I want to buy a car. I need a car today. I want a Honda, and I went to the market. I found a car that costs 15,000. But somebody told me that if you wait 1 week, the price of Honda will go to 10,000. So not only the price of the product today will affect me, but also my expectation of the future price. That's called expectation. Okay, my income, expectation for my income. If I know I'm going to lose my job next week, why do I have to product? So a lot of things affect your decision making to buy a product. Okay, your preference. Sometimes, like say, I'll give you an example. Let's say beer and wine. Sometimes your preference is that you like wine versus beer. So what you prefer, it's very important. So you can see we have a lot of variables, but you remember when we're studying economic model, we have to study one variable at a time. So remember we say ceteris paribus, everything else equal. I'm going to only decide now, talk about the relationship between the quantity demanded and the price. Everything else equal. I will keep the same things the same, but I'm going to only change the price. What happened if the iPhone goes to 800, 600, 700, 1,000? But I'm not going to change other stuff. So everything else equal, the demand will show the relationship between the price and quantity. Everything else equal. I'm not going to change your income. Let's assume your income is 30,000. So I'm going to assume your income will not change, will be 30,000, but I will change other price, the prices. So let's look at some examples so you can see what I'm talking about. This is everything else equal. See, this is where it takes a little bit to get confusing. I want to be sure. So your demand, how much you buy, is a function of the price of the product itself, the price of related goods, your income, and your expectation. You can add a lot of things, but remember, when we're talking about economic model, we simplify the model to take things that are really relevant. There are a lot of things you can look into, but sometimes some variables have really small effect on purchasing behavior. But the one things are really clear, it is price of the good, price of related goods, your income, your expectation. You can weather if you want. Sometimes weather is very important to take in consideration. If I'm talking about like umbrella, should I buy umbrella or not? My decision making also depends on the weather. A jacket, so. But most of the products, they have this all in consideration. So now, so I say, okay, my income is 30,000. I'm trying to buy a Dell computer. The price of Dell computer is 500. Okay. Now, the price of other computers, related goods, whatever it is, HP or something, it's 600. The price expectation will increase or decrease, whatever you say. So now, I'm trying to define the relationship between how much you buy with the price of Dell computer. So now I have 500, and my income is 30,000, and the price of other computers is 600. I'm going to buy one computer. So I say, okay, what if I change the price of Dell? I will put a 700. I will keep everything else equal, means I will keep the income the same, the price of related good the same. I only change the price of del. So you can see I'm studying one variable at a time. I'm not going to study, if I change all of the variables, I will not figure out what is the relationship between one variable and the quantity demanded. So it is very important to fix everything else equal, keep everything else equal. I'm going to see just the relationship between the quantity demanded and the price, everything else equal. Okay, that's very important. So now we have demand. It's a function. Demand, always you see demand is the relationship between the quantity demand and the price. So now from here I can build what is called demand schedule. I can give values to P. So for example, let's say I have quantity demanded equals 100 minus 4P. That is demand function. Defines the relationship between the price and quantity. I can build what is called demand schedule by just say, okay, what if I have the price and quantity? I would just start with the price number. The price equals to 0, the price equals to 5, price equals to 10, price equals to 20, 25. Then I can plug the number here. So if the price is 0, quantity is 100. If the price is 5, 80. If the price is 10, will be 60. If the price is 20, it will be 20. If the price is 5, will be 0. The whole thing, the table, we call it demand schedule. The demand schedule, anytime you see a schedule, it's a list or a table of the quantity demanded at each different prices when all different other influences remain constant. It means I'm going to go change income. I'm going to just only figuring out the relationship between the price and quantity. From this table, I can build what is called demand curve. A demand curve is a graph showing the relationship between the quantity demanded and the price, given everything else is equal. So I can take this table. So if I take this table, for example, it's called demand schedule. So I have a table, the price, quantity. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So the quantity is at the price 1, it's 80, 60, 40, 20. This is demand schedule. I can build graph. We call it demand curve. I can always the price will be in y-axis and quantity in q-axis. So I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I do 10, 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100. So at the price of 1, you have 80. This is a price 1. You have 80 right here. This is a first point. 180. This is point A. Point B, 260. 340, 420, and I can build the line that's called the demand curve. So the demand curve is a graph showing the relationship between the quantity and the price. Just to be sure that always the price will be in y-axis. It's a little bit different than because remember we say a Q is a function of P. Who determines which? The price determines the quantity. In algebra, normally it has to be the opposite. You have to have the independent variable here, which is P. But in economics, they started like this, and it works like this. So the price in y-axis and Q in x-axis. And you build a demand curve. So you have demand schedule, demand curve, and you have the demand function. So here's an example here. So you have demand schedule here. So you have at the price of 5 for ice cream. First, every time you're trying to use demand curve, you put also the name of the product to say that we are in the cereal market. And then we have demand schedule. So at the price of 5, the quantity demanded is 10. You cannot say, you will make this mistake over and over. You cannot say the price is 5, demand is 10. No, so it was wrong. When we have the definition of quantity demanded is at how much people are willing and able to buy at specific price. You have specific price, you have quantity demanded. The whole thing is a function which is demand. The whole graph is demand, the relationship. So we have the price 5, the quantity is 10. The price of 4, you have 20. Price of 3 is 30, and the price of 2 is 50, and the price of 1 is 80. And you link the graphs, the points gives us demand curve. So just remember, there is a difference between demand versus quantity demanded. Big D, when you put D like this, you are talking about the demand function, when you do QD, you're talking about quantity demanded. Quantity demanded is how much people are willing and able to buy at specific price. So if I have specific price, I'm going to say the quantity demanded is 10. At the price of 4, the quantity demanded is 20. The relationship between the price and quantity, we call it the demand function, and we have a demand schedule, and we have demand graph. Now, so first we have the market. What is a market for something? I'm just going to see how many people I have in the market, add them together. So we have individual demand. I can have Billy, Jean, and other people. Let's think at the price of 5, you have Billy is willing to buy 1. At the price of 5, Jean is buying 0. At the other people at the price of 5, it's 9. So if I want to, this is each market. If I want to add them together, I just say at 5, I will do 1 plus 0 plus less 10. So the total market demand is the sum of individuals demand. So if I have, for example, there is a company that has a market in Boston, New York, New Jersey, or like California, for example, LA. So each market has demand for itself. But if I want to know the market demand for the company, means I will add all of them. So like a little bit math. If you want to put it in the symbols, I don't want you to give it. So the demand for the market equals the sum of all the individual market. Depends. So for example, I have a company, the demand market for a company is the demand in Boston plus the demand in New York plus the demand in LA. If I have individuals, stores, for example, store 1, store 2, like the reason they divide the market like that, I want to study the market by itself. The consumers in Boston are not the same as the consumers in New York. I want to know what triggers these people, so I can target these people in different ways, That's why you break it. But at the end, what matters is your total market demand, how much you are selling. That makes the whole company's demand. So now, remember, what is changing? This is where you will see a huge difference. Changing quantity demanded is caused by change in the price. Everything else equal. So when the price was $5, people were buying 10. When the price is 4, 20. The reason I increased this, how much people are buying from 10 to 20 is because the price went down from 5 to 4. So changing quantity demanded, this is just delta means change. That's all it means, instead of writing the word change. So changing is caused by a change in the price. So every time I change the price, everything else equal, I will change the quantity demand. Okay. So remember, we cannot say, this is where things get confusing. You cannot say changing the price will change demand. No. You will see what is the difference between the two in few seconds. So the law of demand, there is a negative relationship between the price and quantity demanded. It means if the price goes up, how much people are buying goes down. If the price goes down, the quantity demanded goes up. That's called the law of demand. So the law of demand means there is a negative relationship between the price and quantity demanded. It also means if the price goes up, the quantity demanded goes down. If the price goes down, the quantity demanded goes up. Okay. Also, this means it's called downward slope. Means if you look at the graph for demand, it's like this. If I calculate the slope for this, the slope of this line, it's a negative. It's the same thing. When we say the demand curve is downward slope, means it's negative. That's the same thing as saying the law of demand means you are moving up and down. So let's talk about this for a second. Also, I want you to be sure you understand what I'm saying. So the law of demand says, okay, there are different ways you can say this. You have the price, you have the quantity. Okay, this is the demand curve. So we have point A. This is a price. Let's say 5, 20. This is point A. If the price goes down to 4, 60. If the price goes to 6, we have 10. I'm just making numbers. So we have B, C. The law of demand says first, there is a negative relationship between the price and quantity. Means if the price goes up, see, from 5 to 6, the quantity goes in the opposite direction, from 20 to 10. So the price went up from 5 to 6, the quantity went from down from 20 to 10. If the price goes down from 5 to 4, okay, the price goes down, the quantity demanded goes up. Also, we can say the graph has negative slope. If I calculate the slope for this, it will be negative. Also, we say it's a movement along the demand curve. Means when we change the price, we have a movement along the demand curve. Means I'm going up and down of the curve. I'm not going to the left, to the right, or to the left. I'm just staying in the same curve. When I change the price from 5 to 6, I move from A to C. I go up the curve. And when I decrease the price from 5 to 4, I'm moving downward to the point B. But I didn't leave the curve. I stayed in the same line. So changing in the price will cause a movement along the demand curve. It does not cause you to move to the left, to the right, or to the left. Every time you change the price, you are moving along the demand curve. You have to be careful. It's the same. So when I say movement on the price, this is A, B, and C. When I say change in the price will cause a movement along demand curve. What does that mean? I'm going to stay on the curve. There is other things. If we do something else, we will see we have to move the whole thing either to the left or to the right. In this case, when you change the price, you have to stay in the same line. That's what is change in quantity demanded. Change in quantity demanded is movement along the demand curve. It's caused by change in the price. Okay, we'll do that. So change in quantity demanded is caused by change in the price. Okay, so when we're talking about the price, you cannot say change in the price will change the demand. That's not correct. I want you to remember this. When you're talking about okay, so remember, anytime we change the price, we have a change in quantity demanded and not demand. It's wrong to say change in the price causes the change in demand. No, because change in price only moves the demand curve up and down. But change in demand is you have to move the whole graph. When I say change in demand, it means I'm moving the whole things either to the right or to the left. Okay, so go back here so I can show you the difference. Now, if you're talking about change in demand, you are moving the whole graph. So this is the difference. If I change the price, I'm moving up and down. Movement along the demand curve. I'm not going to leave. That's called change in quantity demanded. The change in demand is what I have to do. I have D1. I'm going to move it to D2. That's change in demand. This is change in demand. And this is change in quantity demanded. When I say change in demand, I have to take the whole line, move it to the right or to the left. What causes this is only changing the price. What causes this change? Anything but the price. Anything that you can think about could move the demand curve to the right or to the left. But if I talk about the price, I'm not going to move this line. I'm just going up and down.